Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to another edition of What's Your Take? My name is Dayo Akintobi, and I will be taking you through the major stories that made the headlines yesterday, today, and maybe even tomorrow. Who knows? All right. Joining me to take you through those stories is our newscaster and my trusty sidekick, Yetunde Afolabi. Good morning, Yetunde. How are you today?
Good morning, Dai. I'm very well this morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thankful that it's a dry day. This is the first dry Monday we've had in about 2 or 3 weeks, so getting to work was a little bit easier. I hope you had an easy time as well.
Yes, I did. I was very fortunate.
Good, because rainy season is upon us now, so it's almost as if it's a given that it will rain on any given morning when we're trying to get to work. All right, let's take a look at one or two light issues before we get into the substance of the matter with our guest in the studio today. First thing, good news, Nigeria. Resident doctors have suspended their nationwide strike after the federal government has offered the doctors a salary increase. This is good news. It's a good way to start the week. We are elated, we are excited, we are delirious, we are rapturously happy because we've seen the way it's been in the general hospitals the last several days with people needing care and not able to get it, and it's just been bedlam and it's been really horrendous. But we're thankful that the strike is over and hopefully people begin to get medical attention as needed again in all our public and private hospitals. There's in the news that's trending is this ban from the UK on Nigerian students bringing family over to the UK. Is this Japa syndrome that we've all been seeing recently, also known as brain drain. Well, there's been this propensity of Nigerians to seek greener pastures overseas, and the UK has been a favorite place in the last couple of years because of a loophole in the immigration law that allows students who get Nigerians or other people from other countries who get student visas are now able to take their family with them to the UK. Well, UK did the analysis and discovered that in the last 2 years, 150-something thousand Nigerians have gone over with their families ostensibly to go and study, but have taken in tow 2 or 3 children, a spouse, and that's putting a bit of pressure on the UK. So they've said no more. They put a stop to it. If you get a student visa now, you must go by yourself. You have to leave your family behind, and they believe that will be an incentive to actually make you come back after you've finished your studies. So to all of you who are planning to Japa to the United Kingdom, begin to know now that you can't go with your family. So maybe you might change your mind about going and stay to develop our own country. All right. I saw in the news also trending, there's a new certificate, something like the certificate of return given by INEC to those who were victorious in elections. Only this one is called a certificate of survival. An entrepreneur and business lady in the Asaba area of Delta State by the name of Ifeyiwa Ifediegu announced over the weekend that all Nigerians should be given certificates of survival for making it through the 8 years of the Buhari presidency. Pardon my laughter, I couldn't hold that one in. It's just so hilarious to me that we should all be giving ourselves a pat on the back for surviving the last 8 years. Anyway, I prefer to look forward and hope that the next 8 years are much better than the past 8 years. The jury is still out. As far as I'm concerned, there's some people who believe that President Buhari did well. There's some people who believe he didn't do so well. So all this week, every guest we have in the studio will give his own scorecard. We'll give his own report card on President Buhari's performance. So after the break, our guest in the studio will tell us what he thinks, whether whether he wants a certificate of survival or whether he thinks President Buhari performed well. All right, Hilda Bassi, the Nigerian lady who made us all proud by beating the Guinness world record in terms of how long a cook fest has happened, is in the news. She was in church this past weekend and said God's grace saw her through the 100-hour cookathon. What struck me as interesting was the fact that a few days after she broke this record, somebody from Kenya has already stood up and is trying to beat her record. I think that's a case of bad belly. I think that at least allow us to enjoy the glory of this honor for a little while. It's just a week already, and somebody said, no, I don't agree. I'm going to make sure that I take this record from her. So she's now seeking sponsors in Kenya to help her to be able to put on a performance to beat this record. Either way, Hilda Bassi, you've gone in the record books, and it'll stay for however long it takes for the next person to beat you. We're proud of you, Hilda. All right, and finally, before we get to the substance of the news, the last thing is something we call the headline of the week. We looked through all the headlines last week and decided to give an award to the headline we thought was the best of the week. And this award goes to Daily Trust of last Saturday. The headline says, concerns over rising number of children killing parents. Yes, you heard me correctly. Children killing parents in Nigeria. Can you imagine that? In the past 3 years, in 25 states in Nigeria, there have been 47 cases of children killing parents. If you kill a father, it's called patricide. You kill a mother, it's called matricide. I'm not sure the term for if you kill a parent. But it's horrifying to think that in Nigeria, children are not only killing their parents, but they're killing them to this level of 47 different cases in 3 years. This is a serious mental health crisis. This is a serious problem. They say drugs and rituals are the major causes. Whatever the causes are, parents need to quickly, very quickly rise up to address this scourge, whatever it takes. So, Daily Trust, Saturday, you win the award for last week for the most compelling headline. It's a headline that should give us all pause and give us all cause to really think about this and look at it as a society. All right, having dispatched with the lighter items on our agenda, it's time to delve into the substance of today's program. And for that, I will hand over to Yetunde to give us the headlines of the major stories we'll be looking at today. Yetunde, over to you.
Thank you, Dio. Hello and welcome to the news update on What's Your Take. First, the headlines. President-elect Tinubu returns to Nigeria 8 days ahead of inauguration. Next, President Buhari, 5 African presidents to commission Dangote Petroleum Refinery today, Monday, May 22nd. With less than 10 days to go in his tenure, Senate approves President Buhari's $800 million loan request. And lastly, President Buhari's scorecard over the last 8 years. Now, the details. First, President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Saturday returned to Nigeria from Europe, 8 days ahead of the May 29th inauguration. Tinubu had on May 10th traveled to Europe on a working visit. A statement issued by the Office of the President-elect and signed by his media aide, Tunde Rahman, said the President-elect would use the opportunity of the trip to fine-tune his transition plans and programs, and his policy options with some of his key aides without unnecessary pressures and distractions. During his stay in Europe, the President-elect met with the leader of New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso, in Paris. Next, President Muhammadu Buhari will today, Monday 22nd of May, commission Dangote Petroleum Refinery and Petrochemicals, the world's largest single-train refinery in Ibeju-Lekki, Lagos, alongside his counterparts from Ghana, Togo, Senegal, Niger, and Chad. The petroleum refinery, which is reported to have capacity to process 650,000 barrels per day, BPD, sits on 2,635 hectares of land located in Dangote Industries Free Zone in Ibeju-Lekki, Lagos, and will provide employment to over 100,000 persons. The coming on-stream of the gigantic project is expected to mark Nigeria's exit from the League of Oil-Rich Nations that are heavy importers of petroleum products. Moving on, a member of the House of Representatives Committee on Loans, Aid and Debt Management, Abubakar Yunusa Ahmad, in an interview on a TV show last Friday, says federal lawmakers have approved the $800 million loan request of President Muhammadu Buhari. He also stressed that the loan will not be utilized by the outgoing administration, but the incoming administration. The legislature further said, "We want Nigeria to take it, but it is not going to be utilized by this outgoing government. Now, if the incoming government comes, we will see also their own template." And lastly, as President Buhari's administration winds down in a few days, Nigerians from different quarters have rated the president's performance in his 8 years as the country's president. According to a survey carried out by This Day newspaper, Nigerians are grateful to have survived the president's tenure due to the rising cost of living and insecurity. The Vanguard newspaper reported that 63,111 persons were killed during the Buhari's administration, while the Guardian newspaper reported that inflation rate has risen to 22.22%. And those are the headline news stories we will be looking at today. Over to you, Dio.
Thank you, Yetunde. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be joined in the studio by my co-host, Monisola Abosede, and our guest in the studio. And all three of us will be discussing today's major stories. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Good morning, Nigeria. Joining us to take a look at the big stories for today is Emmanuel Ayomide Bafog. Emmanuel is a recent graduate of the Lagos State Polytechnic in Ikorodu, where he majored in mass communications. Emmanuel had a deep and abiding interest in journalism and is a sports enthusiast. Welcome to today's show, Emmanuel.
Thank you for having me, Mansour.
All right. So, as a sport enthusiast, what do you think of the Manchester City football winning the Premier League for the third time straight?
Well, it's a remarkable achievement for Pep Guardiola's side against all odds when the rivals that were chasing them, Arsenal Football Club, were pretty much on top of the table throughout the season. But they came back stronger, and with the recent way they are playing now, they're going for the treble. And I think it's going to be a wonderful achievement for them, given the fact that they've underachieved in the Champions League throughout the years while Pep Guardiola was there. So it's quite amazing for them to equal Sir Alex Ferguson's record of 3-peat Premier League titles in the Premier League. But will they go in for the fourth? Only time can tell.
All right, also let's get right into dissecting today's headlines for our viewers. So President-elect Tinubu has returned to the country after 10 days in Europe and just few days to his inauguration. You know, a lot has happened in the APC in these 10 days. The crisis rocking the APC, the president-elect meeting with Rabiu Kwankwaso. You know, there are reports that now that Tinubu is back in the country, he would be able to address the crisis rocking his party as regards the tussle for the National Assembly leadership, which he left in the middle of the crisis. What are your thoughts on this issue?
This doesn't bode well for the president-elect. It doesn't bode well at all, because in 10 days' time, his tenure is starting. So having crisis like this in your party doesn't show good readings for his tenure early on in his presidential career. I mean, for parties like this, for things like this as well, you can't go sideways when it comes to starting your presidential career. But going forward, I think he has the capability to adjust the crisis in his party, because he doesn't need this right now. He doesn't need this. There will be loopholes. There will be loopholes in his party, and there will be grumbles and moanings here and there concerning some zoning appointments. But I think he has what it takes to address the issues in his party, and he should address it quickly, because it can mar his presidential career.
Okay, so what do you have to say about the president-elect's trip to Europe? You know, there's a lot of secrecy around the whole trip. So what do you have to your thoughts on the issue?
Well, my thoughts on the issue is I don't really read too much meaning, but then according to the reports that I saw earlier yesterday, they said he went to rest in Paris. He went to rest. I was thinking in my mind that he has a house in Lagos. Why not rest in his house? Why go to Paris to rest? But later on, we got to know that he had meetings with some political bigwigs, and so. But going to Paris to rest for me is just a distraction on its own. It could just be in his house in Bodilon and rest. But then he's back in Nigeria now, ready for his inauguration. All goes well for him.
Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Moving on to the next story, the largest single investment is set to commission today in Lagos. And by that, I mean the Dangote Refinery. Now, there is hope that this would be a game changer in the production and pricing of fuel. So do you think people are right to hold this belief?
Well, yes, people are right to hold this belief. They are very, very right to hold this belief. And this is a turning point in our refinery issues in this country. And, but the thing that usually, I'm not really buying into the fact that, is turning out to be, the thing that we need the most in this country. Yes, we need it. Yes, I like the numbers behind this refinery refurbishment and all. But then, what happens to the other refineries? dead wherever they are, and by Alhaji Dangote having this refinery, won't he monopolize this refinery? Won't he make it monopolize like the way he has monopolized the Dangote cement and Dangote sugar? Won't he monopolize it in that way? So I have reservations that what happens to the other refineries in Nigeria? Are they dead and gone? Or are they going to be sold and for private investors so that there can be competition in this sector as well? But it's good that we have a working refinery, the largest in Africa, one of the largest single train refinery in the world. Is a remarkable achievement for Alhaji Dangote and for Nigeria as well.
Great insight. Do you think this is going to affect the price of oil in the market in Nigeria?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I think so, because of the inflation prices in Nigeria and the fact that it will be producing 650,000 barrels per day. It should affect the prices, and prices should be lesser, because as it is now, we are not interested in what it says in the papers. We are interested in what it says in our pockets. Concerning
the fuel subsidy again, there's been issues that because of those fuel subsidy, Nigeria has, to pay debts. So do you think the coming of this refinery, when it starts production, do you think it's going to solve that problem? Budget deficits and other debt problem. Do you think it's going to solve the problem?
Yes, it will. Because if managed well, it will. We should have a way to manage our resources as well. We should manage our refinery, because the more we produce, the more we pay off our debts in other sectors as well. And concerning the fuel subsidy, I think it would be a fantastic one if we can manage to quench that first with the coming of this refinery. I think it will be very, very fantastic if we quench that first. Then we move on to the other sectors by paying our debts and all.
All right, over to you, Dayo.
Okay, Emmanuel, listening to you, I'm actually quite intrigued by the fact that you have such in-depth knowledge at such a young age to be able to understand the economics of this whole oil refining and crude oil. And what I wonder is, according to what you just said in terms of the question Monisola asked you in terms of the deficit and loans and debts and things like that, if Dangote is buying crude from Nigeria, I think Nigeria says they'll supply him 300,000 barrels a day. He will refine that, he will pay for that crude in Naira. He will refine it locally, and then he'll push it out into the market in Naira, as opposed to in the past when we would sell it overseas in dollars, right? We would buy it back in dollars as well. So there was a continuous scramble for dollars. But now that we are Naira-nizing oil production, refining, and selling, from what you are telling me, it will have a direct impact on our foreign reserves and all the debt and all the lending. And I'm tending to agree with you in that respect, because even the excess crude that they will sell to other countries, they should sell in Naira.
Yes.
And that should strengthen our currency.
Yes, that's where I want to go, because our Naira has not been doing quite well, to be honest. Our Naira has not been doing quite well, and we need to strengthen the Naira, because even countries that tend to have lesser economical stronghold in Africa, the Naira, the currency are much higher than ours. So we should, through this production of oil every day, we should be able to strengthen our Naira, because there was a time that when my mom would tell me stories about how the dollar was equal to the Naira back then. But it would be a fantastic one if we can return to that era and make sure our Naira stay there at the top.
Okay, interesting. Okay, Monisola, what do you have for us next?
All right. So early this morning, the president, early this month, the president wrote to the Senate for approval of an $800 million loan, which sparked debates across the country from different quarters. However, in a rather shocking revelation, we found that the loan has been approved but would not be utilized by the Buharis administration, but the incoming government. Emmanuel, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, I don't understand why uh, a loan would be approved when an administration is ending in 10 days. And the shocking of it all is that it's been reported that the administration might not even be the one utilizing this loan. So, which means you are borrowing and putting debt on you are putting pressure on the incoming administration, on the incoming government, which doesn't bode well. I mean, it's just 10 days. Just 10 days. Let the incoming president, the president-elect, let him decide whether to borrow or to utilize the refineries like we said earlier. Maybe we can monopolize that one as well and use it to pay our debt. If we are loading debt and upon debt on this country, it might not bode well in the future, because at the end of it all, you are borrowing $800 million for an administration which has not even started yet. Which has not started yet, and you are leaving office in 10 days. So for me, I don't think that is wise, to be honest. I don't think that is wise, because the incoming president might have his own ideas, might have his own idea of where to get the money from to execute some things. But then you loading debt upon his own administration, it brings unnecessary pressure and unnecessary attention as well. So I think I don't really buy into that.
Do you have anything to add, Tayo?
Okay, well, I have a slightly contrarian point of view from Emmanuel. I kind of thought that since the outgoing government has pushed fuel subsidy onto the next government, and the 800 million naira loan is supposed to be for palliative cushioning measures, I want to believe that the reason the Muhammadu Buhari government has done that now is so that when the new government comes in and takes out the subsidy, the money is already in place for the cushioning measures. The only thing is an issue of transparency and accountability to ensure that the money is used for the purposes intended. I mean, I don't believe the banks are going to release the 800 million to the current government. I just think the current government is doing a favor to the incoming government, because it is law that the subsidy must be removed. So the new government is going to be saddled with removing the subsidy. So this government is probably just doing it a favor by making sure that the tools by which it will cushion the effect of subsidy removal, that those tools are available and ready on ground for the new government to push out immediately it removes the fuel subsidy. Because if we wait for the new government to come and apply for the loan, processing, paperwork and all that, it will take a period of time before the money is available. Meanwhile, we've removed fuel subsidy and there's riots, there's crisis, there's chaos, there's protests. So that's my thinking. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm being too magnanimous with the outgoing government, but I try to see things from a balanced perspective. And in as much as I agree with Emmanuel, for example, I don't think that money should be borrowed for consumption. Yeah. So I think it was even wrong to borrow money to use to give palliatives. I think you should have used savings from the subsidy to fund the palliatives and not borrow money. You borrow money for production and investment, you don't borrow money for consumption. So I think the notion of borrowing it was wrong. But if they had to borrow it at all, it's better that they did it now so that it's available when they need it. My thinking. But I agree with Emmanuel.
Interesting.
Right.
Now, to our last topic for today, President Muhammadu Buhari, who rode into power in 2015 on 3 key campaign promises, which were tackling insecurity, improving the economy, and fighting corruption. And very quickly, what will you say the president has lived up to his expectation based on these key promises? How would you score his overall performance over his 2 terms, totaling 8 years? Mr. Emmanuel.
Well, this is really a $1 million question in the aspect that if I am to score the president on his 8 years in office, I will score him like 5 over 10.
Wow.
5 over 10, yeah, because at the end of it all these promises that you sold to the people when coming into office, to me, it didn't materialize, because I might be wrong, but it is during his administration that the level of insecurity has gotten out of hand. The level of, though why I said 5 over 10 is because it is in his administration that COVID came. the expensive, I think, oil or something. I think something that they were selling in Russia. It was expensive quite then. It was in his administration as well, and he managed it quite well. I think Nigeria has the least casualties during the COVID era, which was managed by his administration well to fine. But other aspects, inflations, fuel subsidy, insecurity, corruption, everything skyrocketed in his 8 years in office. And to be honest, if he had performed well, it won't be in haste to leave the office so quiet, because sometimes
it's time to leave already.
Yeah, it's time to leave. Yeah, I know the job is tedious. I know. There's a saying that goes, "Heavy is the head that wears the crown." Okay. But no, let people say, "Oh, we'll miss this president." Not you yourself. You have already given up that. Oh, let me quickly get out of here because I'm tired. Though he might be tired. Yes, he is tired. But his administration has not lived up to expectations. Has not lived up at all. The promises he sold to the people back then, fighting corruption, insecurities. The level of insecurity in Nigeria today is alarming. Very, very alarming, to the fact that I can't even travel in peace from here to Ibadan. I can't even travel. There was a time that people can travel at night and they would just jolly and merry go on their way. But now, I can't even travel in peace from here to Ibadan, which shows that the level of insecurity in Nigeria today, he has failed on that front. The level of corruption too has skyrocketed, and he has failed on that front as well.
How about the economy, Emmanuel? Do you think he has done well? Are you better off today than you were in 2015 in terms of money in your pockets?
No, I beg to differ. I beg to differ, because now, back then, we were one of the changes or one of the monikers they stood for us then was change. APC change. But they really changed our living conditions for the worse.
Poorer?
Yes.
Poverty is more?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Right. Very well.
Okay, Munisola, well, we have to round up because we're running out of time. But the interesting thing is that Emmanuel gave President Buhari 5. Which is better than the last guest we had, we gave him 2. So maybe the next guest we have, we'll give him 7. Let's go pricing. Maybe. Because from 2 to 5, maybe 7, and then maybe our last guest on Friday will give him a 10. Who knows? So let's keep hope rising that perhaps things will get better and better in terms of his scorecard as the days go by.
All
Over
right.
to you, Munisola.
So that is where we must rest it today, as we've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an engaging time. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel, for being a part of the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Nigeria, for being a part of today's program. Join us again next time as we bring to you trenchant analysis of the breaking news that made the headlines today and every day. I am Munisola Abosede. Many thanks for watching.